All right, now we all know what black and white image we're going to use. So now we're going to learn how to set it up in Photoshop. First thing we do, we right click, we open it with Photoshop. And remember, we only looked for images that were 10 megapixels or bigger. And if we scanned an image, we scanned it at a high enough resolution to print at 8 by 10 inches by at least 350 pixels per inch. So, here's my photo. I can check its image size and make sure that when I print it, if I have resample unchecked, that I can go to at least 8 by 10 by at least 350. So mine looks good. Okay, now to understand how to digitally color photos, I want to show you how photos used to be colored before they were digital. So photographs exist on photo paper, and photo paper is a lot like film. It has photosensitive crystals embedded in it. And the most common of those is what's called silver nitrate or silver salts. And they're spread out kind of randomly in what's called a randomized sand pattern, because it's like sand sprinkled on a sheet. And then in order to get them to stick to the paper and stick to the film in the analog camera, they're suspended in a gel, in a clear kind of see-through gel, like a glue. All right, so if we take a cross-section of the photo paper, this is the paper you would take into a dark room and expose an image onto. That cross-section looks like this. You have regular white paper, usually rag content, which means it's made of cotton and linen. And it's bleached white underneath. The reason it's made out of cotton and linen instead of out of wood is because wood is acidic and it browns over time. Newsprint is made with wood pulp, but rag paper, archival paper, is made with cotton and linen. On top of that, you have your silver nitrate crystals. And then on top of that, and suspending the silver nitrate crystals, you have what's called a clear binder. And it's kind of the glue that holds it all together. And light can pass through that. Now, as light hits the silver nitrate crystals, they get darker and darker if it's positive paper. And as they're exposed to light, they darken. And on the film, if it's negative film, which was what's most common, instead of positive slide film, the more light that hits the crystals, the brighter it gets. So you have the illusion of gray values through just the amount of silver crystals and the degree to which they darken while being exposed to light through that photographic process. So how do you color it? How do you add color to these photos after they've already been printed? Well, what you can do is take a paintbrush, and they would use watercolors or they would use chemical dyes, and they would simply drop it in. So with their paintbrush, and there are certain dyes that work really well with old photographs, they would put the color on the paintbrush, and that color would leak through the different layers of the photo. and it would settle into the paper layer. So if I take all of this, show it to you here. That is how the painting worked. Now, silver nitrate crystals are like a metal, like little metal shavings in a way, but they repel water. So the black crystals, the black and gray crystals, don't get affected by the color. Instead, the color travels right down through them and into staining the paper underneath. So even though it goes through the binder, through the crystals, it eventually gets absorbed into a puddle into the paper underneath. The reason this is important to understand is when you look at colorized photos, you're seeing all of the original silver nitrate crystals come through. These are all digitally colorized. Let's see. So what would sometimes be called hand-colored. Can't find any hand-colored anymore easily. But it's a very similar process. So they would use dyes that would go underneath, and so it's not painting on top of the photo, it's coloring behind it. I have some photos of my great-great-grandparents that have kind of like this. But they actually used makeup on the cheeks. Here's a classic. So that's what it looked like when things were hand colored. The color just drops in behind the blacks and grays. So it has a very muted look because gray is mixed into everything. And so you don't want to just replace all of the blacks and grays in your photo with new colors. Instead, you are dropping color in underneath it. So, how does that work digitally? Well, in the digital technique we're going to learn to set up, we're going to set up our layers to mimic this. So, our top layer is going to be the black and grays from our photo. We have to find a way to separate those out. So not only are they the analog paper layers, these are going to be the digital layers. So our top layer will be the black and grays of our photo, like those silver nitrate crystals. That's on the top. And then underneath that, we're going to have the color layers. Even if it's just one that we add color to. And then behind that, we need to have the blank white layer on the bottom. And I think of it like a jelly sandwich with white bread on the bottom and wheat bread on the top. And then whatever kind of colored jellies we want to put in between, as long as they're sandwiched between, we'll get good colorization. All right, so we've opened up our photo. Now, immediately we're going to make a duplicate of it. And now we want to change this top layer duplicate into only being the blacks and grays, not having the whites at all. And the way to do that is to change its blending mode from normal to multiply. And you'll notice that everything gets a lot darker. All right. But what that allows is that anything we paint underneath this top layer, which I will name blacks and grays, will show through it. Now the background layer, I'm going to rename this by double-clicking it and calling it blank white. We want this to be filled in with just pure white. So I do edit fill white at 100%. And now it looks like just like how it started, but the difference is I have a layer that separates the blacks and grays and then clear white. Now we need a layer in between, and this is where we put our color. And our first color is just going to be flat filled in color. So we'll call it color fills. And if I choose any color and start painting with the paintbrush tool, and we'll learn more about this as we get into the demo, it's going to go just right underneath the blacks and grays. As long as my image mode is in color, which you can always change. So if I wanted to have a pink flannel shirt, I can do that. Okay, the problem is a lot of that pink is a lot darker than the grays on top. So they're actually darkening everything. So by switching it to luminosity, I can see the dark gray that pink actually is. So that's not the right color. So I have to find colors that fit. And so instead of using really pure colors, what we're often going to be looking for are very subtle variations of colors. Usually what are called chromatic grays. And lighter versions, because gray is going to be mixed into them. So maybe that pink is more appropriate because it matches that gray value better. And it's very easy to see the difference in this when we start painting skin tones. So if I just say, oh, this looks like a good skin tone, and start painting it, wow, that looks dark. Right? But if I do a very pale version of that skin tone that's still really saturated, then when it mixes in with the grays on top, it will look more believable. And we'll learn ways to get better and better color selections as we go. Okay, so the only thing I need you to do for this first step is to set up your file so that you have it in these 3 layers. Give him a flesh-colored beard. All right. So you have your blank white layer on the bottom. You have a blank layer that you're going to add colors into in the middle, and you have your blacks and grays at the top. And you can lock the black and grays layer so that you don't accidentally color on top of it. I'll also lock my blank white layer. Now some of you have photos that aren't grayscale, that we scanned in, but they have a lot of brown. So we're going to need to do a levels adjustment and a saturation adjustment to take that color out. But what I would always do is leave a duplicate of the original down at the bottom, underneath the blank white layer. Okay, and when we return to this, we'll start filling in all of those colors.